All right, let's go over your goals and Extemp. Now, I'm not saying, there are two things that I'm not trying to communicate here. The first is that you have to agree with me on all of these points. These are all my personal opinion. These are all things that I think you should keep in mind, but you don't have to. The second thing that I want you to think about is that this is not a 5-step process to becoming a champion extemper. I'm not saying if you do these 5 things, you're going to automatically start winning your next tournament. What I am saying is that I think if you focus on these things, it will help you develop as a speaker and especially help you develop as an extemper. Goal 1, be informed. Being informed is kind of the entire premise of Extemp. Remember, the purpose was to create a well-informed competitor that could evaluate current events. So your goal is to be informed. Extemp is all about things that are constantly changing from day to day. This is not like Mars Hill or APOL when you can prep for it over the summer and then not have to prep for it through the rest of the year. Things are constantly changing. Things are constantly evolving. Things are constantly taking a different form than they were. I can still count on one hand the amount of times this has happened, but it's happened to me a couple times where I have gone into a prep room and I have given a speech. The question was about something that something had changed monumentally with it that morning. I remember a friend of mine back in my freshman year had to give a speech about whether or not John Boehner would be reelected as Speaker of the House. And as he was walking to his room, there was a TV on that had CNN that said John Boehner reelected to Speaker of the House. So basically he just stood up and said, well, according to CNN this morning, this happened. And here's why, guys. I totally have this prepared. All I'm saying is Extemp, you're going to have things that are constantly changing from day to day to day to day. You have to be informed and keep up with what those things are. If you do, you're going to be a lot more effective. You're not going to be able to understand an issue completely in 30 minutes. I wish you could sit down, read a bunch of articles, and completely understand something in 30 minutes when there's the stress and the pressure of a tournament, but you cannot. I've had to try to do that sometimes, and it's really difficult. It's really hard for me to do. And I have a mind that enjoys thinking through politics. I have a mind that enjoys thinking through economics. And it can still be difficult for me to understand an issue, even to scratch the surface of that issue in 30 minutes. If you are more informed, it will give you the ability to go deeper with your analysis. Having a thorough knowledge will help you inside and outside the round. Look, it will help you in Extemp. Definitely being informed, reading the news, knowing what's going on in the world will help you in Extemp. But it will also help you outside the round and even outside of speech and debate. Oftentimes, if you are with a group of people, if you are informed about the way things are going or what is happening in the world, it will set you apart. It will put you forward. It will propel you to having a better understanding of the way that things are actually happening. I can't tell you how many discussions I've had with my family, like my extended family, and they'll be talking about how, I don't know, I'll just use Trump as an example. They'll be talking about how he's this horrible feminist, sexist hater and how he just hates women. And you could make an argument for that, sure. But for the most part, that's an exaggeration of the media. And so I've had the ability, because of Extemp, because I am informed with what is actually going on behind the surface, I've had the ability to say, look, step back for a second. Don't analyze this through that interpretation. Don't analyze it in the way that you do not want to like him, so the facts fit to that, or the facts fit to that. But just think about what's happening. Try to interpret that from a different light. Think about this in a different way. What is he trying to communicate here? Being informed can oftentimes help you be more reasonable. And being more reasonable is something that will help to, A, de-escalate conflict, which is good. Even if you enjoy conflict, the point of conflict is to not have conflict anymore. And being well-informed and reasonable can help you do that. So it has very many applications, especially as you go into college. It can help you to start to develop your perspective on the world. Goal 2, establish credibility. You want to establish your credibility first of all. The first thing you should accomplish when you walk into an Extemp room is you should establish your credibility. Every molecule of your body should like ooze professionalism. That doesn't make any sense. Extemp is the most professional speech event. I talked about this a second ago. When you walk into an Extemp round, your demeanor should be fundamentally different than it is for any other speech event. You should have a gravity about you. You should have a commanding presence that grabs control of the room. You need to be calm and collected. You need to be professional. You know, we think about professional as somebody who has been there before. as somebody who has a certain level of understanding about the way things are. Now, you may not have that level of comfort with Extemp. I'm not saying that you have to. All I'm saying is you need to think about it differently than you think about other events. You draw your credibility from logic and analysis. You do not draw your credibility from being personable or relatable necessarily. Now, you can, but for the most part in Extemp, you are going to draw your credibility from how good your analysis is, how good your logic is, how good your actual claim or perspective on an issue is. You're really not going to gain much credibility from establishing yourself as a person, because when we're talking again about the global affairs, people start to care about you less. Understand the issue and present it clearly. Your entire point of being credible, your entire point of giving an Extemp speech is not to have you be the point of it, is not to have you be the focus of the judge. You are not trying to say, look, I'm awesome and here's why. You're trying to teach a judge about something. You're trying to help them understand an issue and develop their own perspective on it. Now, it would be great if they agreed with your perspective, but who has had political discussions in which they agreed with people? Like, not very many people. I mean, maybe a couple, but everyone disagrees slightly with somebody else on something about something that has to do with politics or economics. So if you're standing up and giving a speech to somebody, it's doubtful that they are going to completely agree with your analysis. What that means is your goal is not to get them to agree with you. Your goal is to help them understand the issue and come to their own conclusion about that. If you do that successfully, their conclusion should be pretty similar to yours. But even just helping them understand it can be effective as well. Goal 3, have an open mind. The first 2 points under this, I want you to take with a grain of salt because there will be a disclaimer as the third. So keep that in mind as I get down to the third point. But first of all, fit your position to the facts, not the other way around. When you get a question, do not think, what is my answer to this? Now I'm going to try to find evidence to support that. No, go the other way around. Look for what evidence there is out there. Look for what's happening. See, oh, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening, and this is happening. What is my position because of those facts? What I am saying is do not fit the facts to your position, fit your position to the facts. If you fit your position to the facts, you will establish better credibility, you will establish a stronger position, and that will help you to develop your argument. Now, raise your hand if you would consider yourself to be a conservative. Okay, most people, almost everyone, I think. Okay, cool. So if you would consider yourself a conservative, don't be afraid to take the quote-unquote liberal position. People believe it for a reason. Just because we are conservatives and think something does not mean that all liberals are stupid. No, there are some liberals, there are many liberals that are smarter than all of us in this room. They all have reasons for believing what they believe. It's not just hogwash because you associate it with a liberal position. Let's take the example of choosing my words carefully. Let's just go with the minimum wage. Understand that I fundamentally disagree with the economic benefits of raising the minimum wage. But let's just see, that is what I would consider to be a liberal position. That is what people often associate with being a liberal position, raising the minimum wage. Part of that is because most liberals agree with it and most conservatives disagree with it. Now, they have reasons for raising the minimum wage. I want to parley round it NITALK to raise the minimum wage. I guarantee you that there are reasons for why that is the case. There are reasons for why that would be true. There are reasons why that is beneficial or even reasonable or even might sound like a great idea. Don't be afraid to take that position as long as the facts support it. If the evidence supports something, then have an open mind to it. Say, look, this speech is not about me. This speech is about trying to find the facts. This is about trying to find what is true, what is real. And if I think this is real based upon the evidence, then that's going to be my speech. With that said, always argue for what you believe in. Always argue for something that you, at least in some context, agree with. Do not argue for things just because they're liberal. I've confused this point sometimes where I said, oh, well, I'm just going to be an awesome devil's advocate and stand up and argue a liberal position just because I feel like it. People hate devil's advocates with a passion. Don't be that person. Be a person that argues for what you believe in. Be a person that is willing to challenge or contradict a commonly held belief, but only do that if you actually have a conviction about that yourself based upon the facts. Let's move on to goal 4. Teach, don't preach. When you get into political ideologies, it can be really easy to just go off on a soapbox. It can be really easy to have a question about something that, oh yeah, this is my wheelhouse. This is the thing that I have the strongest opinion about in all of current events. This is the thing that I believe is the most clear, the most obvious thing. Don't spend the whole time lecturing about your perspective. Has anyone ever heard a sermon where you feel like the preacher is just like assuming that you agree with him when he's talking about things? And like, well, this is obviously the correct interpretation of this scripture, so yeah, deal with it. That's not your goal in Extemp. Your goal in Extemp is not to go off on your political soapbox and say, look, this is the interpretation, this is the only possible interpretation of what's going on in the world, and you're just going to have to deal with that, Judge. No, you're going to have a more open mindset. You're not there to talk about your opinion, you're there to educate the judge. I know Mrs. Caution, she was saying that she loved Extemp most because people were willing to explain stuff to her. People were willing to make something make sense that might not have made sense, or make something interesting that might not have seemed interesting at the beginning. Your goal is to educate the judge. Your goal is to make something compelling, not to try to communicate or preach to them. If you teach the judge about the issues, they're going to be more impacted. Teaching is something where you try to give somebody the facts to help them, but you say, look, it is completely in your power, within your volition, to accept or deny what I'm telling you. In fact, that's this whole workshop. I'm telling you things that are just, in my opinion, from my experience. You can take them or leave them, though. These are not the only ways to do Extemp. These are not the only ways to accomplish your goals. These are just the things that I'm trying to teach you, that I'm trying to educate you on. It's the same concept in Extemp speech. You do not want to preach to somebody. You do not want to try to necessarily convince somebody of something, but you want to educate them on it, give them the facts so they can make a conclusion. If you do that well, again, their conclusion should be similar to yours, but your first goal is to teach, not to preach. All right, goal 5, go deeper. Extemp is all about analysis, so always try to dive deeper than surface level. Always try to go a level lower than you might be comfortable with. If you say, look, I think this is a good place in analysis, I think this is a good step, you should do one level lower. You should go a little bit deeper. Go to one more dependent down. If you're giving a speech on liquefied natural gas in Asia, you might say, look, liquefied natural gas in Asia is having an effect on the European market because it's oversaturating the market, prices are plummeting for gas. You notice how prices are plummeting for gas here too. Prices are plummeting for gas. That's your analysis. That's one level of analysis. That might be good for you, but then take that a step further. See what effects that will have on, say, the European economy. Say, look, if cheap natural gas being exported from Asia continues to affect the European market, continues to saturate the European market, then that's going to lead to thousands of lost jobs. The economy is going to crumble. All of Europe's trade partners are going to feel the impact from that, which means the United States is going to be hurt as well, which means all the poor people on your street are going to die. Don't go that far. All I'm saying is always go a step further than you are willing to. I remember back, I played football when I was like 13 and realized that, yeah, I just shouldn't play football. But when we were training for that, our coach always said, do push-ups until you feel like you are done doing push-ups, like you feel you can't do any more, and then do 3 more. Do sit-ups until you feel like you can't do any more, and then do 3 more. Do sprints until you feel like you are about to fall over and puke all over the ground, and then do 3 more. Everything you do, when you push yourself to your limit, go just a little bit further. Push yourself just a little bit more. The same concept is true here. If you feel that you have gone deep enough, go a little bit deeper. Now that doesn't mean that you include that depth in your speech. That doesn't mean that you have to include every single dive down, every single step down when you actually provide and give your speech. But be willing to take that leap yourself to determine if you want to include it. You can't include it if you don't understand it, or if you don't know it, if you don't know it exists. Anyone can read an article. The best extempers are the ones who can interpret them. The best extempers are the ones who can see something in the world and tie it to something else. The best extempers are the ones that don't take something at surface or face value, but go deeper into the analysis. Analyze everything and try to fit together the puzzle pieces. Try to fit together the puzzle pieces of foreign policy. Things fit together really well, you just have to be willing to put them together. Again, the best extempers are the ones who have the best analysis. Justin Holloman won NITALK last year. He also won NITALK 3 years ago. He is one of the most gifted analysts that I have ever heard do with Extemp. He does things that even me and my political mindset, I was like, oh wow, okay, yeah, that does go a little bit deeper than that. I hadn't really thought about that. Once he does that, it makes sense. But he constantly went deeper. He constantly went deeper with his analysis. There's a reason he's going to Columbia to study foreign policy affairs. All I'm saying is be like that. Go deeper. Go deeper into an issue. Always try to dive deeper into the content with better analysis.